Welcome everybody to the next episode here. Today we're going to be working on another LeetCode easy problem. Today's problem is called replace the elements with the greatest element on right side. Okay, so in today's problem we are given an array called R. We need to replace every element in that array with the greatest element among the elements to its right, and replace the last element with -1. After doing so, return the array. So looking at example 1, we have an input of the array input of 17, 18, 5, 4, 6, 1, and an output of 18, 6, 6, 6, 1, -1. Now we got this because the first loop, this 17, if we look to the elements to the right, 18 is the biggest element out of all of these 5 elements. Thus, 18 is going to be placed into here. Going to the next element of 18, looking to the right of this 18, we can see that 6 is the greatest element out of these 4 elements. 6 is going to be placed down here. Next, 5. Looking at 5 to the right, 6 again is the greatest. The 6 is again placed down in here. And then we were on 4. Looking at 4, to the right of 4, once again 6 is the greatest, and so 6 is placed in here. Finally, when we look at 6, to the right of 6, only 1, thus 1 will be placed in there. And replace the last element with -1, so this last element is just going to be -1 always. So that's something we could maybe even hard code in there. So, okay, and constraints here, the length of this array is 10 to the 4th power. It's going to be less than that, or equal to that. And the elements inside of this array, the greatest they're going to get are 10 to the 5th power. Okay, so down here I have our 2 methods that we're going to work in. We have our public static int. It returns a int array called replace elements. That's the method's name. And the parameters are an int array called named array, or R. Down here we'll have a main method that we'll run some test code for at the end here. Okay, so first thing, thinking about how to solve this, is we know we have to return an int array to return. So we're going to create a new int array here, and we're going to call this replaced elements, because this will be all of the elements after they get replaced. So let's create some room here, sorry. There we go, okay. And we're going to start the size of this array at the same size as the other array, because we can see looking up here that our return array is the same length as our input array. Okay, so now we have our return array. Currently this is just filled with zeros basically, or null pointers. So we need to fill that up with whatever the greatest element to the right is of the element that we're looking at. So we need to be able to look at each individual element. We're going to look at each element with a for I loop. That I loop is going to start at 0. It's going to go up to the length of the array.length. Oh, r.length, excuse me. Okay, so now we have our for loop that's going to iterate through this top array. So we're going to start at 17, that's the I equals 0 element, all the way up to a 1. Now the next thing is we want to do a new int variable here. We're going to call this int maximum number, because we're going to be looking for the greatest number to the right of that element. And we're going to start that, we'll initialize that variable at 0, but we're going to check that 0 against all elements to the right, so that way, looking at this 17 is the ith element right now, we're going to then look at 18, 5, 4, 6, and 1, and find the biggest one out of those 5. So we'll start this at 0, and then right after that, we're going to start a new for loop. This for loop is going to start at j, and it's going to go up to array.length, just like the previous for loop, because you can see that we're going to go from here all the way to the end. So if we started at 17 with that first for loop, the ith for loop, this second for loop is going to start here at 18, and we start that by right here. We say I plus 1. That way we start it at I plus 1, so we're going to add the 1 over to the right. Okay, now inside here we just need to say if maximum number is greater than, or excuse me, less than rj, then maximum number becomes rj. So basically we're saying if this 0 is less than one of these numbers, so 0 is less than 18, 0 is less than 5, 0 is less than 4, then we turn that 0 into whatever that number is. This first go through, it would say, hey, that 18 is greater than 0, so then I'm going to assign that maximum number variable 18 instead of 0. So now that maximum number will represent 18. Next time I go through, it'll be 5. Is 5 greater than 18? Nope, so it won't even go into this for loop. And thus we've been able to find the maximum number that way. Now, at the end of this for loop, of this inner for loop, we need to assign that maximum number to our replaced elements array. So replaced elements array at the ith position, remember we're still in this outside, or this first for loop. So in the ith position, so we started here at 17, so the ith position is still right here at this beginning. So the ith position is now going to equal whatever the maximum number was. So we'll assign that maximum number. In this case, the maximum number was 18, thus we'll assign 18 into that first slot. Now that's going to work for all the cases except for the last case. And in the last case, we're going to have to ensure that replaced elements, this is outside the for loop, replaced elements at the last spot, so array dot length minus 1, so the last element of that replaced elements of this replaced elements array, we're going to assign -1. And that's just because it told us to do that. Replace the last element with -1. Let's replace the last element with -1. After we do that, we can return replaced elements. Okay, so that should be our solution here. Now down here we'll do, really quickly, we'll create a new integer array and test data and new int array, and right here we'll give it some data. So let's see what is up here. It's 17, 18, 5, 4, 6, 1. 17, 18, 5, 4, 6, 1. Okay, and then here we're going to run return data, and that's going to be equal to replace elements. We'll input the test data into that method, and that's going to give us our correct data into this return data variable. And then we'll just do a for each loop and int a from return data, and then we'll print out a. Okay. So looking at when we enter this 17, 18, 5, 4, 6, 1, we should get back 18, 6, 6, 6, 1, and -1. 5, 4, 6, 1. Let's run that. Okay, and so plugging this in, we received 18, 6, 6, 6, 1, and -1. So that is correct. Now looking at the solution, this would be O to the n, O n squared, because for each element of n, which is array, for each element of n, you are having to duplicate whatever the element is inside of that as well. So you have to go through once and then again in the same, whatever the length is, but just -1 because this +1 here. But constant time is going to be O n squared. If you have any questions or would like to make a comment, please comment below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more. Each day I'm going to try and go through a new video and a new problem. Thank you very much.